Number 24, Ormen Langesvei, Trondheim. This is a quarter of an old oil rig from the 1970s. It was grafted on the Trondheim coastline for offshore employees to role-play emergency escape routes in case of crisis like fire. They had theory classes as well as physical role-playing to form exact neural pathways. This is a role-playing society. The oil rig was a gift from Philips to Trondheim fylkeskommune. It is believed to have been shipped from somewhere in the North Sea towards this coastline. It did not have a bow on it. Sometimes big corporates forget carrying details in grand gestures. It had amusing architecture, a slide gushing out of the top floor. If only haunted wheeze were heard at night. It later changed hands to a company called Falknutech. According to the commune, the building's ownership is a bit fuzzy. But many know that this oil rig is for sale. Many have heard that it is filled with asbestos. Some also know that it transforms into a scuba diving hobby club on Tuesday evenings. The building is rotting. Its legs standing in the fjord are crumbling. Rumor has it that this relief sculpture is a trace of tax evasion. It has been abandoned since 2000. Freedom to roam, right to roam, every man's right of public access to the wilderness, is a practice in Norway that turned into a law. It gives everyone the right to access public or privately owned land for recreation and exercise. Live-action role-playing games, or LARPs, flourish in Norway partly because of this practice. This is Landsbyen, a village. Landsbyen means the village. It is a story of a marsh and two spades that became this village. It is believed that organization Landsbyen was an idea conceived over alcohol during a nachspiel. It was started in 2001 by LARPers or live-action role players. Extending their right to roam in costume, they paid the Norwegian government a token sum of 30,000 kroner for 50 years and started building. Part medieval styled, part Viking styled, other times to comply with Norwegian fire regulations, contemporary styled, cluster of cabins form this village. Built solely in the spirit of Dugnad, the construction still continues. The Great Hall is yet to be built. For your information, unidentified flying objects have been spotted from Haltålen, a town in Haltålen, very close to Haltålen, where Landsbyen is located. He was with his family. They'd stuck together through the miles in the forest. They were refugees from Somalia. Sometimes Sudan, depending on the game that was bought. They were running towards Norway. He had been walking with all his belongings on his back for hours. His neck muscles were cramping. He was cold. He was hungry. All he was given to eat was a fistful of rice with some fish oil. They reached yet another border control. There were a couple of older soldiers asking for their proof of ID, filing paperwork. His folded A5 sheet of paper was still wet. The ink had dripped. It was hard to see his name. His face looked like tears itself. They were in line with another group of kids. The soldier approached him asking for his ID. He showed him the damp paper. He looked at it, raised it to his face to see the resemblance to his picture. There was none. He nodded and let him go. He looked back to see one of the others being pulled aside for interrogation. His bag was ripped off his back and turned upside down. A Snickers bar leapt out. They were still 2,000 miles away from the Norwegian border. They would get there in 5 hours. 19 hours of the game were up. His friend had told him, in the end the Norwegian border control only allowed 10% of the players to enter, and then he would feel frustrated. So he ran. He ran away into the forest, away from his family, away from their guide, away from border security, away from victimhood, away from empathy, away from his duty to be conflicted by morals and ethics, away from this ritual. He ran. It was more fun than role-playing. "I am an adult now," he said. Live-action role-playing games, or LARPs, are bought by the Human-Etisk Forbund to impart human and ethical values leading up to the ritual of civic confirmation. Before the Human-Etisk Forbund came together, the ritual of a civic confirmation was born, where instead of religious teachings, there were secular lessons on human rights, critical thinking, and ethics. This was a gift from a father to a daughter in 1954. In 2017, the Human-Etisk Forbund is in an old house, partially encased in blue glass, conjoining the Olaf Kvartalet, a classical concert hall in Midtbyen, Trondheim. The building is also shared by a hotel and a shopping mall. It is 240 meters from the nearest church, 650 meters from the nearest Muslim prayer hall, 1.1 kilometer from the synagogue, and 17.8 kilometers from the nearest Hindu and Buddhist temple. It was the first time she was participating in a protest. It was a rehearsal for a protest that would unavoidably take place in the live-action role-playing game. Someone was scripted to die. Their teachers were the Palestinian players. She learned how to lock arms, the strength of the muscles required, how to contort the face in anger and disgust, how to provoke the soldiers, but with little consequence. Safety is paramount in these games. They practice togetherness, nationalism, becoming a force, and running from tear gas. She said she couldn't claim to understand what the Palestinians had to go through. But now, when she watched the news, it seemed more real. Political live-action role-playing games create a situation that is the opposite of activism, although they are both equally bound to democratic ideals. Energy is not directed outwards. Instead, it is intended to be contained and absorbed by every playing individual. "Sometimes I lose the magic circle," she said. Roleplay in corporates is often mandatory. The boss has done it before and believes in its powers when they recommend it to the company they are leading. Sometimes it is related to practicing health and safety measures, like training the body for crisis. At other times, one practices transforming into the company's animal avatar, say a rhino, transforming the hide, the tongue, the heart, and the hands to become domesticated employees ready to climb the rungs of the ladder towards. Or, this is an attempt to make the organization into an organism. What else could one's motivation be to constantly practice being a better employee? At the highest rung of the ladder, the role playing is more nuanced. It all begins with the greeting. While practicing the handshake, remember that the little finger should be just about tight enough to uniformly distribute your grip. The second digit might dig a bit. Beware. This comes across as too eager to please. He was a freelance workshop facilitator, a practitioner of the theatre of the oppressed, and a passionate live-action role player, who believed that modern management says that which can be measured can be managed. But there is no quantitative analysis whether role-playing actually helps. It's all a hunch. He misses the quantification. If only there was a way to tell. Once, on a trip to India, in a large retail company, he met a storyteller and mythologist and business guru with the shortest and cheapest marketing campaign, his title, Chief Belief Officer. He spoke in a slow and emphatic voice about perception management and about helping businesses expand by including the beliefs of their stakeholders. He propagated that we must strive to be at the forefront of the empathy economy. The story of empathy in governance through role play is as old as King Ashoka. The year was 261 BCE. The Kalinga War had just been fought, one of the major and bloodiest battles in world history. King Ashoka decides to walk in the shoes of the common man. He roams the city, talks to people, eats, drinks, and sleeps amongst his people, and for the first time experiences the destruction, pain, and loss that had been caused by the war he waged. It is after this insightful moment, which was made possible by his disguise, that he turns to Buddhism and becomes known as a peaceful emperor. It was the last scene of the game. Finland continued to be occupied by a fictional country called Euralia. The curfew had been lifted. The students at the school were protesting with their mouths taped. One of the students had just committed suicide in the bathroom. She remembers feeling helpless, not even being able to pretend to know CPR. She was a member of the Solidarity movement. Instead, she went out to break the news to his friends. She made herself gulp several times before speaking. This generated a feeble but caring voice. They fell to the ground, sat there, and cried. She wandered almost aimlessly to the big protest hall. Finlandia was the song drifting in and out of her ears. This song marked the end of the game. 30 hours of occupation were up. Characters wept. Their roles demanded it. She leaned against the doorway watching them, watching the characters and the players cry. The players did cry. They were overwhelmed. I truly believe, she said. She stood there observing, alone. The game was in the process of being suspended. The conditions were in the process of being relaxed. It was at this moment that she decided to mimic her fellow players and cry. She gulped, furrowed her eyebrows, squeezed her insides, gave permission to the song to pull at her heartstrings. It is hard to induce tears, she cried. Have you ever eaten jelly fortune? It is like a fortune cookie. You eat through the jelly towards your fortune. Hers reads, your tears will turn into jello. In this role-playing society, there is great faith in these conditions. Judges role-play giving life sentences. Doctors role-play giving bad news to cancer patients. And master students role-play getting into conflicts in interdisciplinary groups to become experts in teamwork. She once witnessed a really good actor playing a cancer patient who would take the news that he might be dying very badly. She says he was a good actor as he could make his body convulse and perform vomiting. This voluntary-involuntary action shocked the role-playing doctor. Live-action role-playing creates a set of conditions, whether in work or as pedagogy or play. At its core is the physical body. The contingent brain, the translucent eyes, the synthetic skin, the devotional heart, the fluid jaw, the liquid tongue, the flexible feet. This body is a node in a pre-made story. It is fueled by the hope that reality will be born from fiction.